If you were to conduct a survey of the important names in the field of integrated program management, at the top of everyone's list would most likely be the names of Eleanor Haupt and Susan Wood as two of the most influential and the most respected persons in this industry. I had the opportunity to interview the two of them recently at a meeting of the College of Performance Management. I asked them how they got their start in the industry.
I started off working for the Department of Defense, primarily the Air Force, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I started in the budget field.
About what year was that?
Oh, I started in 1979.
Okay.
I was a GS2 budget clerk typist, back in the days when we had old electric typewriters. And just by chance, I ended up in the comptroller field. So I was working in a comptroller office. And I eventually worked my way up to budget assistant, and then I got into the training program, went through many different classes through the Air Force, and I eventually got selected to be in the comptroller training program, and then I became a professional. And I rotated through many, many different offices. So often I felt like a tire being rotated. And along the way, I was in cost estimating, financial management, and then I discovered earned value management. And through the classes that I'd taken and also through some of my work assignments. And it just all of a sudden just dawned on me that here is the big picture. All too often we were just kind of focusing on narrow things, getting this funding document done, putting this cost estimate together. But earned value management brought the whole team together, brought the whole project team together. And it just made so much sense to me. And it just seemed like a whole world opened up to me at that point in time. So I worked for the government then for about 26 years. And when I left, I was on staff with the Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I was the focal point for earned value management. So I was responsible for getting policy out to the program offices, doing a lot of training and that type of thing, and I specialized in analysis and doing Winside training. And that's when I met Susan, because she was the focal point down at Eglin Air Force Base. And we became very good friends.
Okay.
Well, where I started out with Army Audit Agency out of Atlanta, and then I went to Air Force Audit Agency at Eglin, and I left from there and went to the budget shop at Eglin. And I worked as a budget analyst for a number of years, but then I had the opportunity to go over to the AMRAAM missile program back in 1985 as the earned value management analyst, and it was back then I was the CSCSC analyst.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely. And that was when the analyst who was responsible was in the program control shop. And what was so wonderful about it was exactly what Eleanor had said. It was integrated. It was integrated project management. I had to understand what was going on technically, as well as in the cost area, as well as in the schedule area, to be able to analyze the reports that came in from the contractors and to give that report to the general every month. And so I would take the reports from the contractor and give them to the general, and it was neat because I really understood what was going on with the program better than some of the other people in the organization that was stovepiped. So that's how I got into the field, and then I went over to staff and became the focal point for Eglin for earned value management, where I did do analysis as well as training and policy. And Eleanor and I got to know each other through that, as well as being a member of the Air Force IPT for earned value management. Eleanor and I started working together back in the early 90s. And that's how we became friends as well as co-workers.
And it got to the point where we could almost finish each other's
Sentences.
Because one look at her and I knew exactly what she was thinking, and she knew what I was thinking. And
Yes.
Why? What made it so the two of you so connected together? Do you know what was the reason for that?
I truly believe that it was our honesty with each other. We always promised to be honest and open with each other. And if we disagreed, we would state that. But another thing is our friendship is very much based on our relationship with God. And we always put God first in our relationship.
Yes.
And all of his many blessings have brought us, we believe he's brought us together for a reason.
We consider our business a faith-based business.
Right.
Well, that's great. So so what was the next step where it became clear that you needed to start a business together? Or was that the next step? What was
That was the next step. We were actually, she was getting close to retiring. She put in her early retirement papers.
Okay.
And we were at a conference together and having a lot of fun as we normally do. And out of the blue, I don't know if it was you or I, we just looked at each other and said, we should go into business together. And I also applied for early retirement, and she left before I did. But it was in May of 2005 when we started our business together.
This may be really important to some people that are watching this right now. So, like, what is it that you thought you had at that time that you were willing to take that risk of starting a business?
We knew so many people within the community. We knew that there was a need, and we also knew that our skills were well respected within the community. And we were very fortunate that we were able to actually basically walk out, and the following Monday, we were already working on some consulting jobs.
Oh, that's great.
So we had set that up.
And I truly believe that happened not only from our working together through the Air Force, but from our affiliation with the College Performance Management, or CPM,
Right.
because we both had volunteered. We were both working on the board. 2005.
Okay, and so CPM was an active,
Yes,
it was an existing
absolutely.
group already at that time.
Yes, well, it started back as PMA, the Performance Management Association, and then became CPM, and it also was part of the Project Management Institute at that time.
Right.
But the organization has been the same as far as the mission of the organization, and so we both had the opportunity of getting involved and volunteering for this professional organization early, and through the networking and through our the volunteering to help train, to be a part of the training program, as well as involved in policy and guidance and the direction of the professional organization and the networking, I believe that gave us the backbone, courage, whatever you want to call it, and knowledge to know that we would have an opportunity to succeed in this business.
You know, it's really an incredible thing, and I don't want to embarrass either of you, but I know, for example, I'm a user of Winsight in some of the work that I do. If you happen to have the help screen automatically turn on, Winsight starts every single session with a quote from no one other than from Eleanor Haupt. And it's like the help suggestion, and there's many of them, all with at the bottom Eleanor Haupt. And I happen to have been at a couple of meetings today at this conference we're attending together, and at the bottom of one of the screens was at both instances was a recognition of Miss Susan Woods, and the fact that someone was acknowledging that you were the one that provided that information or came up with that concept, that thought of putting those two things together first. So it's just amazing. But I would have to ask, is there a business in what you're giving so much? Is there a business? Are you making money, or does this work? Because you're such contributors. Like, how does this work?
Well, we've been very blessed, and like I said, our first client actually, even after we left working for the Air Force, wasn't even with the Air Force. It was with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So that's how we were well known with them, and we had worked with them for many, many years. Yeah, so we've. I believe that coming to these conferences and networking is what is so crucial for what we're doing in business. And as Susan mentioned, giving back and volunteering. Someone today in the comments on my training form called me a subject matter expert. I still feel like I'm learning about the subject, and there's still so much to learn and to do and to grow and explore, that I just felt really humbled by that.
That's why we come to these workshops and these conferences. That's why we volunteer, and we do give, but we receive so much more.
Right.
You know, and that's something that we want to have the younger folks understand, that you give, but you receive so much more.
So there are a lot of things that are in flux, and there's some things that don't change. I wonder if you could kind of talk about what you see as being the baseline things that are just always there, always going to be true, that you can see just remaining steadfast, and how it impacts this industry.
I think that we need, as a community, we need to focus on the culture of EVM, and we need to focus on continual training. That is so crucial because as people come into program offices or contractor facilities, they don't get the adequate training that they need to properly do their job with earned value management. And the other thing that people need to recognize too is that every company, every federal agency has its own culture. You need to learn that, and in some cases, that culture needs to adapt and grow and to embrace earned value. So I think there's a couple challenges in that regard that I think are really critical in the years ahead.
And I think also that what people need to remember is that with all the changes taking place, whether it's software, whether it's the way we're going to do things, etc., is that earned value management is a project management discipline. It's just the way we look at it and make sure that we have a disciplined system in place to do integrated technical, schedule, and cost performance management.
I had a chance to speak today with the dean of DAU after one of my training sessions, and he said people need to learn how to critically think and to analyze and not just crank the data through, pump the formulas through. You also need to understand what's behind that, what's driving that. And even when you're setting up your baseline or revising your baseline or doing anything like that, why do you need to do that? So people need to see the big picture and to think about how the pieces fit together.
How much do you feel where things are today in regards to reciprocity?
I believe that it would be a good thing. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're beginning, and I do believe it would be a good thing if that happened.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I do believe that, in the past, Department of Defense has had a working group where they interacted with members of industry, and Department of Energy is now doing that as well. And I think it even can go down at the lowest level too. When I was working in a program office, it was a pilot project for earned value management. I would do my integrated analysis, and I had a very good working relationship with my contractor. And I called them up one day and I said, would you like to see the analysis that I do on your data? And they were kind of shocked that I'd be willing to provide that. And I said, well, that's just kind of closing the feedback loop. You need to know what I'm thinking, what I'm looking at, what I'm analyzing, and that will help you.
Where do you find people stumbling the most? Where does it seem like people seem to, where you can almost say if they're going to trip up, they'll probably trip up here as far as their ability to understand and to use earned value or to integrated program management?
The ability to properly integrate earned value management data with your schedule data, and then to relate that to projected funding requirements. Again, to kind of step back and see the big picture and see the impacts. And then the other big thing is always effective corrective actions is such a key thing that people fall short on from the contractor side. And I think on the customer side, we don't hold them accountable for improving their variance analysis and corrective action data. And I like to joke, my favorite EVM guideline is guideline number 26, is to take management action based on the results of the data. I mean, to me, that's why we're getting the data anyway. So I think that's one thing where we fall short, that we need to do better at.
Do you see the quality of the ETC being as good as it has been in the past? Is it getting better, or are there problems with what is the capability of a CAM to be able to use information as a predictive tool?
I believe that it's still about the same, which is very mixed. I think all too often, depending upon the company and the corporate culture and the processes they set in place, it can be a real challenge for the CAM to present a realistic EAC. And in a lot of cases, it's almost impossible for them to present what they think is a realistic EAC. And they're not given the training to do that or the insight into the data to properly do an EAC. I still think that's a serious issue.
And I think that is coming from something that Eleanor said in the very beginning, and it has to do with the culture of the organization. And we have to remember that earned value management is top down. The need for the information comes from the top down. The quality of the information comes from the bottom up. And whatever the culture is from the top is going to be what you get as far as an implementation of earned value management. But I think one of the other stumbling blocks is, and it goes back to something I'd said earlier too, is that people do not look at earned value management as really project management. It's still where they believe that it's something separate, that there's two systems, and it's not. It is integrated technical schedule and cost performance. It is one of the tools in the program manager's toolbox, but it is project management. It is a project management discipline. It's not any different.
And I've got to ask you about your involvement in the college performance management. How do you look at this experience and say, you know what, this shaped me? And if so, if it did, how did it shape you? How has it shaped you?
Thank you for asking that. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to grow my leadership skills. And when I started coming to these conferences, I was asked to give a presentation with somebody else. And you won't believe this, but in high school, I was probably the shyest person you'd ever want to meet. If you told me that I'd be comfortable getting up and speaking in front of people, doing any kind of public speaking, I would have said you were totally off your rocker. I never could have done that. But through the opportunity, through CPM, I learned how to publicly speak. I learned how to meet new people, engage with them, find out what they knew, how I could help them, or just find out more about their backstories. And then as I got more involved with CPM, I became the executive vice president. I became president of the organization. So I served in the board for 9 years. And since then, I feel like it's really helped me hone my leadership skills to organize and lead people and to give them a vision to work toward. So I think it's really helped me professionally.
And it's helped me also. I've been on the board for 14 years, and one of the things that I did that I believe has helped me more than anything is being vice president of conference and events. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing that, and it's been an opportunity that has taken Eleanor and me both to places like Japan and Panama,
Australia,
and Geneva, Switzerland. You know, we've had the opportunity to travel the world and meet new people in this same field, and there's no words for the opportunity that it has given both of us to grow in our professional, as well as, I will say this is has been one of the most rewarding times of my life, is being a part of this professional organization and working with all the people. It's just been fantastic, and I encourage anybody whether you're in this field or whether it's this organization or not, this is a way to go to help grow your professional skills.